You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Hey everybody, just before we get started on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, just a brief preview of what is ahead. We recorded this episode with me sitting in the Tokyo Dome prior to a broadcast at the Premier 12 tournament. So the audio is a little different from what you're normally accustomed to on Show Before the Show episodes because kind of spotty Wi-Fi and in a loud arena and all that type of stuff. But wanted to get that to you today because got a chance to catch up with Alec Bohm, the top-ranked Philadelphia Phillies prospect, who is a member of this United States Premier 12 team. Talked to him actually today. We're recording this on the 15th of November. After his team came from behind for a 3-2 victory over Chinese Taipei on a 2-run homer by 8th-ranked Minnesota Twins prospect Brent Rooker. So, talked with Alec. This interview, by the time you hear this, the situation may have changed for the United States. That win kept the U.S. alive to play for possibly a bronze medal coming up on Sunday. They are actually awaiting the results of a game that started just a little while ago between Mexico and Korea. If Korea wins that game, still a chance that the U.S. will play against Mexico for a bronze medal on Sunday, and the winner of that game would go on to the Olympics. If Mexico wins that game, then the U.S. would be eliminated from Olympic bid contention in this year's tournament, but could still come home with a gold medal. It all kind of depends on how some other stuff shakes out tomorrow on the final day of the round before the championship round. So just wanted to give you a heads up on the audio. Alec Bohm is coming up in a little bit, and enjoy this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. This is going to be the most audibly strange recording of the Show Before the Show podcast in our long and illustrious history, because I'm currently sitting inside the Tokyo Dome watching Tampa Bay Rays, I believe 17th ranked prospect Jake Cronenworth hit batting practice. He and his team are set to go against Chinese Taipei coming up here in about 2 hours from Tokyo. So it is currently 9:53 a.m. on Friday, the 15th of November, 2019. My name is Tyler Ron. And in New York, it is what, Sam Dykstra?
It is currently 7:53 p.m.
On Thursday.
On Thursday, yes. On Thursday. Sorry.
It's so weird. It's all so weird, man.
You're the one in the future. You got to be telling me about things you're seeing.
I come home on Monday. I leave Tokyo at 6 o'clock in the evening on Monday, the 18th of November. I land in Denver at 5:45 in the evening on Monday, the 18th of November. Like, so weird. So weird, man. But hey, with that, we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. I am Tyler Ron. He is Sam Dykstra. Set to go for 3 more days of the Premier 12 tournament. Watching these dudes with this U.S. team who need a win today over Chinese Taipei, their final game of the Super Round, which is what the second round of this tournament is called. They need a win and they need some help. They need some wins by other teams. They need Korea and Chinese Taipei to play well in their games after today. And help out with wins over Australia and Mexico. Right now, the only chance that the U.S. has at clinching an Olympic berth coming out of this tournament is if they play Mexico head-to-head in the bronze medal game coming up on Sunday. So we will see. All that remains to be sorted. But we got some stuff coming up for you today here on the show from Premier 12, and also a whole lot of other stuff going on around the minor league world.
Yeah, so Tyler, I'm actually going to throw this back to you. This is going to take on even more of a little bit of an international flair than it already is. But today, when we were recording this on Thursday, the Copa de la Diversión identities got announced. 22 new teams are added for this year. 92 teams are going to be participating in 2020. It's obviously the biggest the Copa has ever been. Which is super exciting. But Tyler actually wrote the story on which new teams are coming together this year, what new identities there have been. So, Tyler, what stood out to you in writing the story for the MILB.com site? Go check it out now about the new identities and what's fresh for the Copa in 2020.
Yeah, there's a lot. I kind of going into the interview, and I have to extend my biggest thanks to Chanel Zapata and Corey Bernstein at MILB at the MILB offices to have a lengthy conversation with me about things. And going into it, I kind of thought, like, how do I make this interesting again? I mean, obviously the identities are always going to be interesting, but what about it is different this time around than last year or the year before? Copa de la Diversión, for those who are unaware, is oh man, we're getting into the This is the weirdest place I've ever recorded a podcast in my life. So, just a brief pause. The ushers here at the Tokyo Dome do this weird thing 2 hours before game time every single day, in which they all walk up and down the sections, waving their arms up and down, and they have these radios that go off, and I have literally no idea what they're doing. But it also, the first time I saw it, I was like, are we being invaded by robots? Like, what is going on right now? It is very strange, and it's allowed. Kind of funny, but in the Tokyo Dome, they play very popular music, but they play covers of very popular songs. So, for example, they'll play like "All About That Bass" by Meghan Trainor, but it's like a knockoff store brand version of that. I'm assuming for a licensing issue of some kind. But the first day that I was here, they're playing these songs. I'm like, why does this song sound a little different? Why does this Chainsmokers song sound a little different? And then I realized, like, none of them are the actual songs. They play these weird covers, and it's so strange to me. Between that and the robot invasion going on right now, we got a lot of things to contend with. But let's talk Copa. So Copa de la Diversión is an outreach initiative for minor league baseball, which is part of the broader MILB outreach initiative called MILBS Divertido. It's fun to be a fan. And it is Copa is the Fun Cup. If you have not read anything about Copa or seen the Copa identities or anything in seasons past, minor league baseball established this initiative as a way to reach out and engage with Hispanic and Latino communities around the country, and took off, started in 2017 with 4 teams as part of just kind of a pilot run very late in that season. 2018 grew into the 30s. 2019, there were 72 teams participating, and now 92 teams will be here for the 2020 season. And it's really pretty incredible. The identities, teams take on a different identity, a Hispanic-inspired identity for, whether it's just one name or one night or one series or a handful of nights, as has been the case over the last few years. Teams become a different thing for a night. So obviously we've seen some very successful rollouts for franchises like Albuquerque, which won the title in the first year of the Copa program. They were the Mariachis. They still are the Mariachis. Fresno with the Lowriders has been a cultural phenomenon. And we have so many new teams that have joined the fold this year. It's obviously awesome, and the most visual element of Copa are these identities. But the thing that I kind of did not realize is how much work minor league baseball teams and staffs and front offices have done in engaging with community organizations. And Corey at MILB told me that they're still compiling some of the data, but it looks as though cash and gifts of similar value to local organizations last year surpassed $400,000 from minor league teams. Copa games have been attended by crowds 20% higher than the average MILB attendance on any given night for the 72 teams that were participating in the program last year. It's been a really, really incredible initiative that I think has gone even more gangbusters than anybody would have expected when it was launched, and it was already expected to do pretty well. Last year, there were roughly 1.8 million fans who attended the nearly 400 Copa games across the country. The initiative was named a finalist for Sports Business Journal's Sports Breakthrough of the Year Award, and there are some really amazing things that are going on with this program from the identities, and obviously the merchandise and all that type of stuff and what that does to raise awareness of the initiative, but also the way franchises have formed these relationships in their communities with Hispanic and Latino businesses and community leaders and just various organizations that get to be a part of this now. And furthermore, for 2020, MILB is continuing to enhance a partnership with Echo Outdoor Power Equipment, which came on last year as the first commercial partner for the Copa program, and helped launch Project Refresh, which is a campaign in which MILB was able to go into, I think, almost a couple of dozen baseball and softball fields around the country and refurbish them with the help of Echo Outdoor Power Equipment. The first time that MILB will be joined by an official charity partner for the Copa program is 2020. The Lupus Foundation of America will get that designation because that is a disease that disproportionately affects Hispanic and Latino communities. So there are some really, really amazing things going on with Copa, and Copa 3.0 is very cool.
Yeah, and I'm just really excited that new communities are going to be experiencing this. Like we said, 22 new places. I'll talk to Ben about this a little later. We'll talk about one specific new rebrand, but it's such an opportunity to reach out to a group of fans that have been in your communities all along, and now get to see a little bit of themselves, at the minor league ballpark. The fact that these 22 new cities have seen the success of that everywhere else, and Tyler mentioned the bumps in attendance and what they actually do to a night at the ballpark. It's just super exciting, and to see it expand this way, and hopefully it's just the continuation of a trend until we can get as many minor league teams as possible involved in this in the years going forward. So really looking forward to some of these clubs joining in 2020.
Yeah, it is a very cool initiative. All the details on Copa 2020, not all the details, I should say. The primary details are up on MILB.com right now, and I say not all the details because we actually have not done this in the fall before. This is usually a rollout that happens in March, right before the season starts, but this year, teams kind of at the urging of teams sort of pushed MILB to, hey, let's drop some interesting Copa over the offseason before the award is actually announced for the 2019 season, which will be coming up at the winter meetings in December. So it's a two-phased rollout for this year, and the logos are up. The logos are amazing and are colorful, and some of them are kind of wacky, as you would expect. Amarillo is the pointy boots. We've got the Luchadores Manzanas, if I remember correctly. Rocky Mountain is La Lloronas, which is kind of a folk tale sort of thing in Hispanic culture that's explained in the story. So it's a really cool initiative. The initial details on Copa are up on the site right now, and that is strike one on this week's episode of the show before the show. Strike two this week. Let's talk about some baseball stuff, as we got some more Milby Award winners. Sam, Luis Robert for everything that he did with his offensive season, which was absurd. And Mackenzie Gore with offensive player and pitcher recognition this year. Two unbelievable seasons for those guys.
Yeah, and both of those guys are people we've been talking about all year round, obviously, so I don't want to add too much here. But, when we talked about our previews for each of these sections of the Milbys, I think it was pretty clear that these guys were at least in that upper echelon, maybe front runners, maybe not. But Luis Robert taking Offensive Player of the Year, just somebody who did everything on the field, basically, very, very well, climbed all the way to AAA, played at 3 different levels, tore the cover off the baseball everywhere he went. He was one of 2 minor leaguers this year, Kyle Tucker being the other, who had 30-30 seasons. He played, I think, only Dylan Carlson and Mason Martin amongst our finalists played more games than he did. So he did it basically beginning to end. The numbers were a little bit, affected by the fact that he started out at high A, Winston-Salem, and, was probably too good for that level and showed it very quickly. And that tinges the stats a little bit. And then he finished the year at Charlotte and Charlotte's an incredible hitter's park, as we know, and AAA numbers took off. So yeah, his numbers are tinged a little bit that way. But the fact that he was pretty consistent between Winston-Salem, AA Birmingham, and AAA Charlotte, I think tipped him over here. The fact that he could hit home runs, hitting 32, steal bases, stealing 36, had a good average, batting 328, had a good OPS at 1.001. WRC plus was 170, which was third best among our finalists. The only guys ahead of him were Ty France and Kevin Crone, who played 76 games and 84 games, respectively. So played far fewer than he did. That tips him over here. I think Gavin Lux was the other guy a lot of us considered for maybe first place votes. He got his fair share amongst the staff. But at the end of the day, Lux didn't quite have the power of Robert. He didn't quite have the speed of Robert. So Robert gets the nod there. Mackenzie Gore, even in the headline, we mentioned that he had video game stats. I mean, it was tough to ignore this year. A 1.69 ERA between High A Lake Elsinore and Double A Amarillo. The fact that he put up a 1.69 ERA despite playing most of the year in the Cal League is incredible. We're going to talk about park factors here in a second. Lake Elsinore is actually a pretty pitcher-friendly stadium for the Cal League, but even then, he pitched better on the road during his time at High A than he did at home in Lake Elsinore. So he wasn't just doing this, in a pitcher-friendly stadium. He was doing it everywhere. Struck out 135 batters in 101 innings. Only walked 28 in that span. At a 0.83 WHIP. I could keep going, but Mackenzie Gore, one of the top pitching prospects in the game coming into this year, dealt with a blister issue for most of 2018. So, we always thought the stuff was good. Could he put it together? Could it be on the mound for long enough? Got 101 innings, showed his real capability. Probably the top pitching prospect in baseball now because of that. Some real hype going into 2020, probably starting out at Double A Amarillo. But when you look at some of these other numbers, I mean, they're close, but they just didn't match the same level of control, level of ability to get strikeouts, keep batters off the base pass, and to do that like I said, in a league like the Cal League was really, really special. So yeah, Mackenzie Gore moved into that spot with the top starting pitcher Milby pretty easily this year in the 2019 season.
And strike three this week, Park Factor stories back on the site for Toolshed. This is always one of we get this, every so often, checking in on how ballparks have played around the minor leagues, and AAA and AA up first. It's fascinating because we have so many new parks and teams that have moved and levels that have changed and all that type of stuff. So it's always good to check in on how the ballparks are playing. I guess at AAA, it's it might be a little bit skewed in 2019. But Sam, take us through the Park Factor stories for strike three.
Well, that's the great thing about Park Factors is that it's relative to your league. So yeah, offense may have gone up across the board, but because everybody was playing with the same ball in the PCL, it's all relative. It's all relative to where these guys play at home and then where they play on the road. So the thing that stood out to me this year in AAA was we got a new stadium in Las Vegas. Vegas Cashman Field was always going to be a hitter-friendly stadium. We kind of knew that because it's at a good elevation. It's pretty dry. There's a lot of reasons why the ball can travel there. They opened up Las Vegas Ballpark this year and actually got more hitter-friendly, which was kind of insane. In 2017 and 2018, Las Vegas had a home run factor of 115. That's on a scale of 100. So 100 being average, it was about 15% better or more homer friendly than your average PCL park. This year, in 2019, they moved into the new stadium. The home run factor was 153. So 53% more home runs were hit in Vegas than the average PCL park. That's kind of crazy. All of this you have to keep in context here because the PCL is a hitter-friendly league. So, when Vegas is 53% better than a league that's already going to favor hitters, that's really, really incredible. It's IL foil, I guess, if you want to call it that, is Charlotte. IL is by most measures a more fair league than the PCL is. This year with the new Major League Ball, offense took off there, and they ranked 1-2 in a lot of the full season rankings for total offense. So the IL is now trending more towards hitters. But in terms of the parks, it's kind of fair except for Charlotte. Charlotte, between 2017 and 2019, had a home run factor of 170. So if you are playing a game in Charlotte, you are 70% more likely to hit a home run there than your average IL park. That's something we have to kind of keep in mind here. Luis Robert did play a lot of games at Charlotte this year. That's something you have to look at. When White Sox prospects, so you're looking at guys coming up through those ranks. What are they doing at AAA? If they're putting up video game numbers, you have to know, hey, they're playing a lot of their home games in a launching pad. When I looked at Luis Robert specifically, he had a 695 slugging percentage at home in Charlotte, which is incredible. On the road, he slugged 579, which is still good, but we're talking about a 120-point difference. That's notable. So that's just things you have to kind of keep in mind. We do this story every couple of years. I think the last time I did it was 2016. I didn't want to update it for 2017 or 2018 just because everything was kind of recent. There's sometimes some noise, but generally the numbers are pretty consistent. 3 years on, we're getting some of these new stadiums. I wanted to revisit it and come back to it and see how prospects had done in these places. Speaking of new stadiums, moving to AA real quick, the real standout here for me was Amarillo. Amarillo, as we know, was a new park for this year. San Antonio became a PCL park. Colorado Springs, which used to be a hitter-friendly place because it was at an extremely high elevation, is now a Pioneer League park. We'll get to that maybe down the line when I do short season and rookie ball. But Amarillo was an unknown. We didn't know what was going to happen there. It's a brand new minor league stadium, brand new minor league place. What is going to happen? And what I learned was Amarillo is one of the windiest places in America. That affected things pretty quickly because Amarillo had a run factor of 151. It had a home run factor of 228, which, again, 100 is average. So this is way above that. You were more likely to hit a home run there in Amarillo than anywhere else in AA, which is crazy because Reading, we know, is a launching pad in the Eastern League. And there's some Southern League parks like that as well. There were 206 home runs hit in just 68 games in Amarillo this season. And then on the road, in 70 Amarillo road games, there were only 93. So 206 to 93, that's how you end up with such a crazy home run factor. This is just one season. There's a lot of samples in there. Like I said, there's 68 home games, 70 road games. But how is that going to vary as seasons go on? We'll have to see. But the wind really carries the ball there in Amarillo. And, right now there's a lot of Padres prospects that are going to be coming up there. That's going to become the launching pad of AA, something to keep in mind for 2020 and beyond. I mentioned Reading before for the Eastern League. Hartford is another really hitter-friendly park there. And then in the Southern League, we're actually losing Mobile next year with the new team moving to Madison, Alabama. Mobile was the most hitter-friendly league in the Southern League. How is Mobile going to play? We're going to have to look at that for 2020. So check out the charts here. They're really fun to play with. If some of your favorite prospects called these places home, be sure to check their splits. I pointed out some prospects in which the splits were incredibly extreme. But yeah, this is, like Tyler said, this is always one of the fun stories to think about because it provides necessary context that we all need when we're considering prospect performance year in, year out.
Our audio cut out at the end of Three Strikes, so we're going to intro this week's interview right here, and then we'll hear from Alec Bohm. Like I said, got a chance to talk to Alec after today's 3-2 victory for the United States over Chinese Taipei. He has been the primary third baseman on this team. He swung a pretty good bat, had some mammoth home runs when the United States advanced from the opening round in Guadalajara, Mexico, to get here to the Super Round in Tokyo, and started off by asking him about that big Brent Rooker home run to keep the U.S. alive for both medal hopes and Olympic hopes in Premier 12 today.
It's exciting. He got all of it, and anytime like a guy like him's up, just every time he swings, you know he's close to putting one over the fence. So I knew he got a good pitch to hit. I think it was his third at bat. That guy wasn't gonna get him 3 times. I think.
the offense as a whole, in Guadalajara and here, the dynamic of the ballpark is so different. Going through lineup changes, all that type of stuff. You guys obviously know how much talent you've got 1 through 9, but the game against Australia, frustrating. Today, for the most part, frustrating. What's the conversation like to keep everybody up in the dugout? I mean, obviously Eric is so big with that and some of the voices that you've got, but what have you guys been talking about?
Yeah, there's never any panic. We're always one swing away. Just string together a couple at bats, and just like that, we can put up 5 in an inning. Because every up and down, we got a whole bunch of guys that hit 3, 4, lead off 2, whatever throughout the whole season. The guys in the 9 hole that hit 300 all year. So it's a deep lineup. So there's never with me. I never have any panic. I know if I don't get it done, a good chance the next guy's going to get hit. So there's a lot of talent.
Take me through the selection process for you. When you found out that USA Baseball was interested in you, and you kind of weigh the whole, do I want to go, Tokyo is November and all that type of stuff. How did this whole thing come together for you?
It's a no-brainer. For me, they asked if I wanted to do it, and I couldn't say yes fast enough. So anytime you get to represent the country, put on the USA jersey, it's special.
The fall, the process, you get done with the regular season, you come into the fall, and you're obviously staying in that game mindset. Especially when the regular season ends, how do you kind of shut down for a little while and rest and recharge briefly, knowing that you're going to get right back into games pretty soon?
Yeah, for me it was a little different for a couple of us. We just went right to the fall league, kept playing. So for us,
I guess it's true that it was the next week.
Yeah, I think me, Joe, a couple other guys, Ponce, Penn. We were pretty fresh. We've been working, playing, so we were in game shape. But for the other guys, I'm not sure what they did. But I'm sure they kept working out, kept hitting, kept throwing, stayed loose, and we got together for that camp and played about 5 scrimmages, exhibitions, 4 or 5, and got ready to go.
So did you basically go straight from the end of the regular season, just go straight to Arizona?
Yeah, I had about a week off, and so we went from the playoffs, had a week off, and then started playing in the fall league.
Tell me about the fall league experience. It's such a, it's like you're on an all-star team every day, which probably helps get used to something like that for something like this also. But what was that like going down there and being around so many guys who are super talented and the excitement and the fun that you guys all have?
It was a lot like this. Yeah, I know, but we had it was a bunch of guys. Every game, it was like an all-star game, like you said. You face one guy, and then he starts the game. Next at bat, you're facing another guy that's really good. Next, so on, and so you're getting 4 or 5 at bats a day against guys that got really good stuff, and it's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun.
When you go down there for something like that, do the Phillies give you specific stuff they want you to work on, or are you just down there getting more at bats, more innings, that kind of stuff?
For us, it was just keep playing and go out there and do what you know how to do, but continue to get the reps and face good competition and get ready to get a taste of what the next level's like, and the more you see the high velo, the good off speed, the polished pitcher, the good stuff, obviously the better you get. You get into camp, into this U.S. camp, and there are so many different types of guys, so many different types of careers. Obviously, the prospect status for so many of you guys and how exciting that is, but you've also got, Brandon Dixon's been over in Japan playing for 7 years. Brooks Pounder's in the big leagues last year. He's the only returning guy from this team 4 years ago. To get a mix of guys like that together is so different from what you had in the fall league. What has that been like with the way this group is meshed? It's a really cool, dynamic, because like you said, you come in the locker room and you see, a guy like Eric Kratz, who's, obviously had a long, good career, and then you got guys like Dixon who's been over here, and we're all asking, we get over to Japan, we're all asking Dixon questions about where to go, what to do, and then we got guys that are 20, guys that are middle 20s, guys that are 30s. So it's a really cool dynamic, and there's a lot of picking brains going on. Talking to older guys that have been around, guys that have been in the big leagues, and a lot of storytelling, a lot of just trying to learn from these guys.
That game against Japan a few nights ago, you guys come away with a 4-3 win. There's 35,000 people here. They're jumping up and down and chanting and singing and doing stuff that, playing in the minors, you're not going to see a 35,000 strong crowd. A lot of nights in the big leagues, you probably won't see a 35. That experience to be, lined up on the baseline, hear your national anthem, take the field, playing a game like that. What was that like?
It's a great honor, but for me, hands down, that was the coolest game I've ever played in. In an atmosphere like this, and never played in a dome. Being in a dome, and just the crowd, they're
all 9 innings, they didn't. I feel like they didn't sit down. They were into it the whole game. It was something I never seen before, and it was really cool.
You guys, when you're the quote unquote villain in a scenario like that, you're playing the home team, and you've got an entire stadium like that is 99% against you. Obviously, you got your friends and family right behind the plate, but being in that dugout, what is that experience like for you guys as a group, knowing that you're hanging on, you got a 1-run lead late, you end up closing it out, but that brotherhood kind of feeling in an atmosphere like that, I would think has got to be pretty special.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, it was the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. Everybody is locked into every pitch, and it felt like, the game was over like that, because it was just like you were just like kind of in that different zone, and it was something special.
A couple more for you, I'll get you out of here. The off season coming up, what are the things you're most excited about? You finally get a chance to shut down for a little while and get to go home. What are the things you're most excited about when this is over and you get to relax for a little bit?
Man, I think I'm gonna sleep for 2 days straight. I'm gonna go home, see my family, see my friends. Take a couple weeks off and just relax and hit the reset button, and then it's gonna be a short off season. So I'm after a couple weeks, I'm gonna get back into it, start lifting, start working out, trying to get strong, and get my body ready for another 160 games.
Last thing, you go into next year, what are the things that you're most focused on in 2020 you want to accomplish, you want to get better at? I mean, obviously it's always a little bit of everything, but is there anything that you're really focused on next year?
I think I want to take the same approach I took in the last off season. I did a lot of just trying to try to do a lot of things to keep my body ready to play the whole season. I had the injury in my first half season, so I wanted to make sure, like, obviously that was a freak thing, but it kind of opened my eyes to I want to be on the field every day, and so I did a lot of things to try to keep myself in a good shape and make sure that I was available every day.
Congrats on this one, and best of luck the rest of the way, man.
Appreciate it.
Joining us this week for his weekly segment, and a pretty big week in terms of minor league business and rebrands and names. And we talked about Copa stuff before, but we're going to talk about a new brand name on the minor league landscape with Ben Hill. Ben, how are you doing?
Doing well, Sam. Thank you very much. We are in a room that doesn't even have a name or number.
Yeah.
It's just a wild card room, completely abandoned, but there is a small tube of Eucerin dry skin therapy hand cream, and I've used it. So you are hearing the voice right now of a man with very smooth hands.
I've never thought about that in terms of, you always talk about like things that shouldn't be on podcasts is when we're describing this room, and now we know exactly the quality of your hands, which is good.
Yeah, I'd like to thank whoever left this tube of Eucerin. And they're not a sponsor.
They're not a sponsor. We cannot stress that enough. They are not a sponsor.
But if you do want to get in touch, representatives from Eucerin Dry Skin Therapy Hand Cream, I just used it and I had a good experience.
Well, hopefully that conveys on this week's segment. But yeah, like we were saying, big news this week on the AAA side of minor league baseball. The New Orleans Baby Cakes are no more. We knew that was coming. They'll be moving to Wichita, Kansas, which will become Kansas's only minor league baseball team. They get one right there in the Pacific Coast League, right there at AAA. Pretty big deal, coming in 2020. Now we know their identity. Ben, what can you tell us about who Wichita will be in 2020 and going forward?
Yeah, and as you just said, Kansas's only minor league baseball team. There's also no major league baseball team in Kansas.
Yeah.
Despite the existence of a team called Kansas City. Really makes you think. But yes, Wichita last had baseball in the form of the Wichita Wranglers, who you may remember. They played through 2007 before relocating to Springdale, Arkansas, and becoming the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. This team is the relocating New Orleans Baby Cakes, and it's the same ownership group. A lot of the same core staff members made the move from New Orleans to Wichita. And I think early on you might think, well, this is a team that went with Brandiose and changed their name to the Baby Cakes, just several years earlier. In Wichita, maybe they're going to take a similar approach. But no. Wichita's new AAA team, they did not go with Brandiose to design the logos. They went with Todd Radom, who is a veteran sports design individual who's done a lot of great work through the years. They went with Todd Radom, and they came up with this name, the Wind Surge, the Wichita Wind Surge.
Which is two names, or two words rather. This is not what we talked about, like intercaps, where it's capital W, capital S, but it's one word. This is wind space surge.
Right. It is not that compound word with the capital S in one.
Right.
Good. Thank you for pointing that out in this audio medium where you cannot see that. Yeah, the Wichita wind surge. And, Wichita can be a windy place. It is, the air capital of the world.
How did they come up with that, by the way?
Well, that's more related to the presence of Boeing in Wichita, a lot of the aviation industry being centered in Wichita. Before the Wranglers, there was a AAA team in the now defunct American Association, which was called the Aeros, AEROS, referencing Wichita's role in aviation. But wind surge, with this Pegasus in the primary logo, this Pegasus kind of surging forward through the W representing Wichita. The general consensus and the feeling behind this name is that yes, there's the Wranglers. Like these other teams were referencing things that Wichita had been known for. Wranglers, cows, cowboys, horses, arrows, aviation history. But there's a new ballpark being built on the same site where the previous ballpark was, Lawrence Dumont Stadium, that hosted those aforementioned other minor league teams that Wichita had. But there's this idea that with this new ballpark, downtown development in general, and just the spirit of the city right now, that it is a city that is surging forward, that is not looking at the past so much as looking at the future and deciding what it's going to be known for going forward. So the Pegasus and the wind surge name is, really in relation to the spirit of the city right now. And as Assistant General Manager Bob Millette told me, a city exponentially surging forward. I also talked to Todd Radom, who designed the logos, and he was saying, some names, lend themselves to a visual identity fairly easily. And this one doesn't really. How do you depict a wind surge? So you have the Pegasus, you have these word marks that, the text is a bit italicized, moving forward. Apparently also, you don't think of city flags being particularly, well known. Like, does New York City even have a city flag?
Oh, yeah, of course it does.
Well,
it's got the blue, white, and orange.
Right. See, I don't even know. I've
But
lived here for 17
do like
years.
That's a big deal. I mean,
Right.
like, not a lot of cities have that.
Yeah, some states, the state flag is bigger than others. Tyler Maughan can talk at length. Our not dear departed Tyler Maughan, but Tyler, who is in Japan as we speak right now. He can speak at length about the Colorado state flag. But I personally hadn't thought of state flags or city flags being like a big deal to a particular city. But apparently in Wichita, the Wichita city flag is a very popular visual icon. So there is a key logo that references the colors and style of the Wichita state flag, this kind of rotating red and white color with a baseball in the middle. But this is an interesting name, where you have your sod poodles or yard goats. You might get a lot of the initial blowback. This is too stupid and goofy and silly. But you also have these animals and this branding you can imagine around the ballpark. Wind surge, it is a little harder to kind of to know right now before the stadium opens. How is the wind surge brand going to really be part of their identity? Because what is a wind surge mascot? Is it a Pegasus? Is it what is the mascot for something like a wind surge? How do you brand around a wind surge? And again, talking to Bob Millette, the assistant general manager, and he said, we can tap into all sorts of other elements of Wichita's culture, history, present, past, in branding it. We don't have to be specifically related to the wind surge name. But it is a little bit more of an interesting one and not so much in line, both visually and with the story behind it, than other things we've become accustomed to in minor league baseball through the years. And I think it's an outlier even in this year's rebranding season, which has been fairly diverse just in terms of the approach. We had Fredericksburg moving from Potomac and just keeping the Nationals name. We have the Fredericksburg Nationals was the first rebrand. We had the Kannapolis Cannonballers, which we talked about, the Missoula Paddleheads. And now, as Logovember or whatever you want to call it, rolls on, the Wichita Wind Surge, as Wichita surges forward toward 2020 and opening a new ballpark in downtown Wichita, where Lawrence Dumont Stadium once stood.
And we talked about this in the opening segment of the show with Tyler before, but Ben, this is obviously a lot of your beat as well. We'll move on now to Copa. Just first off, your general thoughts as we expand out. We added 22 teams this year. I think there are 92 total now. As this is kind of expanding, how are you seeing teams take on Copa, and what are you thinking about some of the 2020 rebrands that are coming?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool overall. I mean, last year was a major bonanza, as because in 2017 there was only, I can't remember, but only a couple dozen teams maybe that participated.
It was in the 30s, yeah.
Yeah, and then last year it just exploded, more than doubled, and so this year, with so many teams already on board, this year is a little smaller. I believe 22 new participating teams, and now that we know the general style and aesthetic of Copa, it isn't as much like, oh my God, what is this? You kind of know, you don't know what's coming necessarily specifically, but I mean, I think what we're seeing, is in line with what we've seen in the past, and it is a mix of, food items, names that reference, occupations and elements of the city's past, and folklore. And stories, that are central to Hispanic culture. So I can't say, like, on the whole, there was anything that I was like, whoa, I've never seen this before. But it's great to see more teams participating. I hesitate to say every team should do it because it does depend on the market and your resources and whatnot. But to now be over 90 teams, over half of minor league baseball, I think as many teams as possible should do it, and continue to reach the Hispanic demographic, which that's the reason this whole thing started. It has historically been underrepresented, and especially when we look at the composition of the rosters of these teams. I think it's also important that the fan, not the fan rosters, but the fans in the stands, are equally represented. So this is always a great way to do that and connect with it. And then the name and the logos are just a jumping point, a starting point, really, to develop these relationships that, if they hadn't been established, really needed to be with local Hispanic business owners, with cultural groups, with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce's, whatever entities you can reach, and have a better excuse and more context to get in touch with, and to really make inroads, getting those fans in the ballpark.
And it's not just fans either. I mean, how much of the game now is Hispanic in terms of players on the field? This could be a celebration of that, even if you are looking at your home demographics and maybe thinking like, oh, we're in an area that there's not a huge Hispanic population, maybe we don't need to do this. A core of your team, guaranteed, is going to be Hispanic, whether it's Dominican, Cuban, Mexican, whatever, Venezuelan, Colombian in some cases, on down the line. It's a really, really fun initiative and way to celebrate fans, players, the whole, all of what Hispanic culture has brought to minor league baseball and baseball at large. But we want to talk about one team specifically because you've got a cool story coming out about one particular brand for 2020, and it's Las Lloronas de Montaña Rocosa, which, for those of you at home, is the Rocky Mountain Vibes, their new thing. But Lloronas is not vibes. That's not the direct translation here. Why are they going with Lloronas, which is kind of fun, given what we know about what the Rocky Mountain Vibes are going for on a normal basis?
Yeah, well, I was looking at the 22 teams that are participating for the first time. Tyler was writing a more general overview story, which I'm sure you've already talked about. So I was looking at the new teams and saying, what one really jumps out and kind of seems like it has the most interesting story? And that, for me, was Rocky Mountain with this La Llorona identity. And La Llorona is a Mexican folklore legend that I'd never heard before. But essentially it was a woman, when she was alive, she was named Maria. And the story, like legends and myths and folklores, there can be all sorts of different variations. But generally what I've been able to gather, this is a woman who married a man and was, increasingly rejected by this man. They had children, but he only paid attention to the children. And one day she just snaps and she drowns her kids in the river. And then after she died, she got stuck in this purgatory. She couldn't go to heaven, and she had to find her children instead. And now she's this white, weeping woman ghost who traverses all over the Southwest searching for her children. So it's a pretty dark story. Yeah. And but a lot of it is, I talked to a man named Joe Aldaz who had suggested this to the Rocky Mountain Vibes as a potential. He was the president of the Colorado Springs Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Chris Phillips, the Vibes general manager was meeting with him, and it was Joe Aldaz who said, well, when you're talking about Copa and potential things, this is a story that comes to my mind of La Llorona. And we all heard it growing up. And if we were, outside playing too late, your grandparents or your mom might yell, like, get inside now or La Llorona is going to come get you. It was one of those things. And he said, if you're Hispanic, maybe not all over the country, but especially from the Southwest, if you're from Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, then you almost certainly know these stories about La Llorona. And I liked that the Vibes were willing to go with this dark story, have a correspondingly kind of spooky logo of this ghostly woman with a rose in her hair and this face that kind of generally resembles it's like a baseball mask almost, if you describe it. Her lips look almost like baseball seams, but not in like a goofy, overly cartoonish way.
No, very artistic. You can see this as like a tattoo.
Yeah, almost. Exactly. It's a really cool logo. Check it out. And so I was talking to the team about it, and Chris Phillips, the team's GM, said, we weren't really going for this, but the more we thought about it, the more we did think this tied into the Vibes brand, which is kind of an offshoot of this proposed Happy Campers identity that celebrates life in the outdoors and camping, and their mascot is a s'more. So he's like, think of telling this story of La Llorona around the campfire. And, that kind of ties into this Rocky Mountain Vibes persona that we got going. So anyway, of the 22 new identities, this is the one that jumped out the most to me and decided to feature it in a story. And it'll be out on Friday, the same day that you are listening to this podcast. Don't read the story while you're listening to the podcast because I understand it gets a little confusing, but please check out the story.
What I really like, I know you say this ties into the whole Vibes thing that they're going for, but I actually like it as a contrasting feature in that, these initiatives are chances to try something new. Not everything has to tie into, hey, what are we, from game 1 to game 140, and how does that tie in? Do something new. Like, this is something completely different in a way.
Yeah, and I think Chris Phillips is saying that, like, they were willing to go in this direction anyway, and it's sort of like retroactively, belatedly, like, hey, we can also tie this into our main brand. But absolutely, I agree with you. It doesn't necessarily need that tie-in, and a great part of Copa is the ability to do something new and to have a complete, a visual identifier that is completely separate from what you do on a day-to-day basis over the course of, if you're a full season team, 70 games a year, home games a year.
And so now for something completely different, we've got a new thing up. I don't think we've ever done this, at least on this level before. As everybody knows, Ben has traveled all across the minor league landscape the last couple of years, been to every minor league park. Along the way, you pick up some really cool stuff. We're moving offices soon. A lot of the stuff you had to get rid of. But the way we're going to do that this year is through a really cool sweepstakes through the minor league Twitter account. What can you tell us about what we're calling Win Ben Hill's Stuff?
Yeah, through traveling, I never ask teams for anything, but often people just give me stuff. People send me stuff, just in the sort of job I have, you end up with a lot of swag, for lack of a better way to put it. And Sam, as you know, sitting, 2 cubicles over from me currently with an empty one in between.
For legal purposes, we have one in between.
Yeah, one in between, exactly. I have a lot of this stuff that I've accumulated just sort of stashed in bags in this empty cubicle, like under the desk, on top of the desk. I have some of it at home. But, we're New York City residents. I live in an apartment. I can't keep everything I get. And now that we're moving, I can't just take bags and bags of swag from one place to the next. So, yeah, we're giving it away on Twitter. So this week has been the first of what will be 6 weekly sweepstakes called Win Ben Hill Stuff, with a different prize bundle each week. And to win, all you have to do is, you have to be on Twitter. And then if you're on Twitter, you have to follow @Milb, the minor league baseball account, @BensBiz, me, and retweet, give an RT a retweet to the MILB tweet that says, how would you like to win Ben Hill's stuff? Enter the sweepstakes by following Milb and Ben's Biz and retweeting this post. And so anyone who does that, who follows Milb and Ben's Biz and retweets this one tweet, is entered, and then we'll do a random drawing each week. And for each of the next 6 weeks, someone will win a package of stuff from my personal collection of minor league baseball swag.
And we should actually tell people what this is. This is not just hey, I got some pencils when I went to Lancaster that one time.
No disrespect to the pencils that the Lancaster Jethawks give away.
No, of course not.
Some of the best pencils in minor league baseball.
I'm sure. You got to hold on to those, though. That wind at the hangar could kind of pick those up.
Yeah.
But for this first week, what you're giving away, or what people can win, I shouldn't say just giving away, but is a Lake Elsinore Storm basketball jersey that was made to celebrate LeBron James's arrival in LA.
Mm-hmm.
A Hartford Steamburgers. Is it steam?
Steamed burgers.
Steamed burgers. I always thought it was steamed cheeseburgers for some reason. Steamed burgers T-shirt, a Toledo Mud Hens hat, and some cards.
And some Topps Ben's Biz cards that we'll throw into every single prize package. So that's what it is for this week. Each week there'll be about that many things. We have some pretty special ones coming up that I think will be a little more sought after, and hopefully get that retweet count up into the who knows, dare to dream, even into the 4 digits. Right now we got a little over 200, and this week's contest ends tomorrow, Friday, at 5 p.m. So if you're listening right now and have not entered yet, please do so. Just give a retweet to that post. Follow me at Ben's Biz.
And keep coming back, because like you said, we're going to have 6 of these. This is just week 1. We'll be revealing more about what's in each package each week. So keep coming back to the Milb Twitter account to find out about those sweepstakes. Ben will talk about, I'm sure, more of these packages in the weeks to come. But we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Sam. And before I go, I hesitate to bring this up, in a public forum, but I did hear something a little disturbing about you that I just want to bring up and get on the record. And I don't know, I did find it a little disturbing, but here we go. I heard that when you have a Tootsie Pop, you only eat the lollipop portion and then throw out the Tootsie Roll on a stick.
This is true, yeah.
That is disturbing.
It's not disturbing. The actual, I don't know, the candy portion, I guess we want to call that, is if they just made that as a lollipop, I would have that all the time. Cherry is what I grew up with. My dad used to be a teacher, and he used to give out to his students Tootsie Roll Pops. I grew up on the stuff. Used to love it. Used to look for the Native American shooting the star to try to win something that nobody ever actually won, I think. But yeah, never actually liked the taste of Tootsie Roll. So I was having this discussion with somebody earlier this week. I don't know if it's the Tootsie Roll that infuses the rest of it with flavor. Like if you took out that, would it still taste as good? Or did they just hit a home run with the candy portion itself? But that's all I want out of it. So I get what I want out of it, and I discard the rest. I have no problem with that.
All right, fair enough. To each his own. I do find that to be a pretty aberrational behavior. And hit Sam up on Twitter at Sam Dykstra, MILB, and give him your own thoughts on the proper way to eat a Tootsie Pop.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Thanks for hanging in with us on kind of an unorthodox episode of the podcast, but things get relatively back to normal next week. I will be back home in the United States, and we will get back to normal just ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday and winter meetings and all that type of stuff, which is coming up. So big thanks as always to everybody on the show today. Sam Dykstra, who is always the one to make this thing sound smart. Benjamin Hill as well, who you can find on Twitter and everywhere else at Ben's Biz and The Ben's Biz, and also at MILB.com/Ben's Biz. And to Alec Bohm, who was really kind to take some time out of his walk back to the hotel today to catch up with us and share some thoughts from here in Tokyo. So my name is Tyler Mon for Sam Dykstra. We'll talk to you next week.